Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Wendy and I'm with Inspire Ministries, and today I want to speak to the person who feels like they want to give up, feels like they want to quit. Me too. I have felt that over the course of my life many times, and I want to share with you something that has really helped me as of late, and I'm hoping that it encourages you too. Again, I am here to not only inspire you and encourage you, but challenge you to go deeper and to love Jesus with your full heart. So let's just get into the video. One of my very favorite stories in all of the Old Testament is found in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, and it's this story about a king named Jehoshaphat. Now, if you're not familiar with the king Jehoshaphat, you can certainly read 2 Chronicles for yourself, but today I want to highlight just some of what I absolutely love about him and share with you how it relates to maybe your story and how you might feel now that you want to quit, but man, there is still hope for you if that is the case. King Jehoshaphat was the fourth king in Judah who trusted the Lord throughout his life and throughout his reign as king. And one of the primary things that King Jehoshaphat did is he worked very hard to remove the pagan worship from Israel. So one thing was true about King Jehoshaphat, and that was his ability to keep strong worship pure before God. And that's one of the very things that I love about him, and we find this story unfold in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Now, Jehoshaphat also insisted many times on hearing from a true prophet of the Lord before he made any swift move as he was in his reign as king of Judah. And it's very evident that this is true in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Faced with enemy armies that were stacked against him, Scripture tells us that Jehoshaphat was terrified by the news. And as a result of being terrified by this news that these armies were out to get him, he begged the Lord for guidance. And we find this in verse 3 of chapter 20. In addition to that, we also discover that what King Jehoshaphat did is he ordered everyone in Judah to begin fasting. And we can find this again in the second part of verse 3. What we know about Jehoshaphat is that he prayed and he trusted the Lord. He prayed and he trusted for God to give him instruction on what to do specifically about this case. He saw an army coming against him. He was terrified. And because he was terrified, he begged the Lord for instruction. We see in the scriptures that he prayed to God, declaring God's goodness and communicating the community's powerlessness and weakness. And then the Bible tells us in verse 14 that the Spirit of the Lord came upon one man. Now, in the midst of all of this going on, the king being terrified, the king praying for God to give him instruction, we see that the Spirit of God fell on one man. That's again in verse 14. The Spirit then addresses all of Judah, and he says this: "Listen, all of you people of Judah and Jerusalem. Listen, King Jehoshaphat." He says, "Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged by the mighty army, for the battle is not yours, but God's." We serve an interested God. Don't you love that? We serve a God who has intimate interest in our lives, who is compassionate on us when we are terrified. And how many of you, like me, have often been terrified, and not just terrified for what we see, but terrified possibly for the assignment that God has given us specifically to do. Now, I know how tempting that it would be to stop here at this verse where it says the battle is not yours, but it's God's, to stop here in this verse and call it a day. It's tempting for me to do the same thing too, but there's more. I want you to take a look at the following verse. The Spirit of God continues to speak, and he says this: "Tomorrow march out against them. You will find them coming through the ascent of Ziz at the end of the valley that opens into the wilderness of Jeruel." And this is found in verse 16. So the order here in combination is: don't be afraid, this battle is not yours, and march out against them. So there's twofold here. Do not be afraid. It's not your battle to fight, but tomorrow I need you to march out against them. Now, it might be confusing, but I want us to go a little bit deeper in our thinking about this. The Lord, in his goodness and in his sovereignty and his magnificent plan, is interested in our predicament. He is. He's interested in the things that we're interested in. He's interested in the fact that we are terrified. He's interested in the fact that we are worried about what it is that we are supposed to do. And that alone ought to intensify our persistence to advance into victory. Yes, friends, the battle belongs to the Lord. It's true. It's scriptural. And this isn't the only time, especially in the Old Testament, that we see this thing communicated. Yes, the battle belongs to the Lord, but very often we are content to end it there and be satisfied. But listen, waiting for his rescue still requires work on our part. And I don't know if you knew that or not. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. Waiting means, as long as it refers to Jehoshaphat, it means doing something. He says, don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid. This battle's not yours, but I need you to march out in it. It still requires work on our behalf, even if that work is only praising him and believing him for victory. Jehoshaphat and his men still had a requirement. And that was this: march against them. Go into battle. Know who the battle belongs to, but go out there and do the work that I've called you to do. I wrote this in my journal when I originally studied this years ago, and I wrote this: his ownership of my battle doesn't give me license to withdraw from my assignment. I want to read that to you again because it's really important. And I have reviewed this time and time again as I have reviewed what I've studied in this particular area of Scripture many times. His ownership of my battle doesn't give me license to withdraw from my assignment. You see, he might be coming to your aid, and I want to tell you he is. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, if you are living by the Spirit, if you are allowing his Spirit to reign in your life, listen, he is coming to your aid, and he is telling you this battle isn't yours to fight, it's mine. He might be demonstrating his power in your overwhelming circumstances, but listen, friends, there is still an obligation that you have. And we learn many things, some things that I just want to list here that we learn from the life of Jehoshaphat. We still have an obligation to do what these Old Testament greats did. What we learn about Jehoshaphat is that we still have an obligation to beg for his guidance. To beg for his guidance, to say, God, I don't know what you're doing here. I don't understand your plan. I don't understand your ways. In fact, I don't even know what the outcome is going to be, but I trust you. And so I beg you to guide me. I beg you to show up in my circumstance and do the work that only you can do. The second thing we learn from the life of Jehoshaphat that we too have an obligation in is to pray. To just pray. Now listen, I know the temptation often is to say, well, I've prayed for this situation. But listen, that's not just saying a prayer at the close of your day when you're tired in your bed at night and being done with it altogether and saying, well, I've prayed for it. He's just going to answer it in his timing. Praying is having an ongoing conversation with the lover of your soul. Listen, I could say that I have a conversation with my husband at the close of every day, but that's not a relationship. That is not believing in that relationship and having a relationship ongoing with somebody. It's just conversing with somebody once a day. Listen, prayer is an ongoing conversation that is developed in the heart of the relationship that you have with Jesus Christ. And so we learn through the life of Jehoshaphat that we too have an obligation in response to his goodness to continue to pray. The other obligation that I believe that we see in the life of Jehoshaphat that we have an obligation to in and of ourselves is to declare his goodness. To declare that he is God, that he is good, that we have seen his hand work before and we are promising that we are going to see it move again. declaring his goodness, saying, you know what? God is always good. God is always working on my behalf. I remember going through many trials in my life and deciding in advance, I am going to pray through this. I am going to pray the goodness of the Lord in this circumstance. And I'm going to believe that because he has been good and because he has been faithful my entire life, he is going to be proven to be good in this situation as well. The next thing that I believe that we learn from the life of Jehoshaphat that we too have an obligation to do, that is to acknowledge our weakness. We are made strong in our weakness. Why? Because his strength is seen in us. And so we too have to be like Jehoshaphat, saying, listen, we are powerless and we are weak without you. We know that the only good that resides in us comes from you, God. We know that the only power that we have and the only strength that we possess comes because your strength is made powerful in my weakness. And so we just surrender our powerlessness and our weakness over to you, God. The next thing that I think that we see, especially in the life of Jehoshaphat, that we too have an obligation to is worship of God, to worship God. Scriptures tell us here in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, we see that he actually sends praisers ahead of the battle. Listen to this. It says in verse 21, after consulting the people, the king Jehoshaphat appointed singers to walk ahead of the army, singing to the Lord, praising him for his holy splendor. This was before the battle was won. This was before they entered into the true battle itself. He sent praisers out. So can we, before the storm, before the hard thing, before the work even begins to be started, can we worship God with a true, authentic heart like Jehoshaphat did? The next thing that we learn about King Jehoshaphat in 2 Chronicles 20 that I believe that we have the power to walk away with and we have an obligation to is to believe in victory. When God has called you to do something, listen, he has already equipped you to do the work that's required of you. I want to say that again. If God has called you to something, if he has given you an assignment, listen, he has already equipped you for that assignment. And if he hasn't already equipped you for the assignment, he will equip you as you go. He did that with Moses. Moses says, I am not capable of doing this. I am a stutterer. I do not speak well. And God called him anyway. He asked him to advance, and as he stepped forward, the Lord gave him the strength that he needed. He equipped him as he said yes to the thing that God was asking him to do. So we need to believe in the victory of Jesus Christ. Do you believe in the victory that he's called you to be a part of? Listen, you cannot withdraw from your assignment because you believe that the battle is the Lord's. You have reason to believe that if he's called you to it, he's equipped you for it. The next thing that I believe that we see in the life of Jehoshaphat that we have an obligation to do as well is to stand firm. To stand firm in our assignment. God has called me to this. Listen, many, many times in my ministry, I have wanted to quit. And I remember hearing the voice of the Lord so clear in the year 2019. It was July 2019. I wrote it on a sticky note and put it in my journal. And I believe that I heard the Lord say to me, Wendy, I need you to awaken my people. It was as clear as day. And I had no idea what that meant. In fact, I begged God to give me more of what this meant month after month after month. And I'm still in the process of asking God, what does this mean? But listen, I have also read many times where the battle is not mine, it's the Lord's, but I do not have the right to give up my assignment that he has ordered me to do because I just want to say, well, it's not mine to fight, it's the Lord's to fight, so I'm going to sit here on my hands and do nothing. I still have to do what he has asked me to do, and that means begging him to show up. That means praying to him every day. That means believing for the victory, and that means standing firm in the assignment that he has given me. Many, many times we fall short of the glory of God because we step back and we resign from the assignment that he's given us. But just because the battle belongs to him does not give me permission to withdraw from the assignment. I have to stay in the work that he has called me to do. Listen, friend, you have to stay in the work that he has called you to do. I don't know what he's called you to do. I know what he's called me to, and he is constantly calling me to new things. I have to stay faithful to that, and you have to stay faithful to that. Listen, the time has never been more important for you and I to stand firm, to be like those disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane who Jesus asked to watch and pray with him in that garden, to not fall asleep, to stay awake, to rouse other people to awakeness if possible, to awaken the people around us, to share the gospel with people, to be a light in darkness, to be Jesus with skin on to our coworkers. We are called to do the work, to do this assignment that God has called us to do. What is it that he's called you to do? Do not withdraw from that assignment. Listen, the work is too priceless. The workers are too few, and you have been given a call by God, a calling on your life that only you can fulfill. And if you don't fulfill it, if you go to your grave never fulfilling the thing that God has called you to, there will be a void in the earth because of it. Listen, stand firm, pray, believe in the victory, stay with your assignment. It has never been more important, and we learn all of what God desires from us and for us in the pages of his word. In 2 Chronicles chapter 20, learning from the life of Jehoshaphat is such an amazing place for us to begin. Listen, by keeping us in the battle, yet taking on the ownership of the conflict, God saves me. Did you know that? He saves you and I from this depressing thought that the overwhelming burden and the daunting assault was a result of my weakness. Listen, we cannot let the enemy win in this area of our lives. We need to stay on course and to stay in the assignment that God has called us to do. I could lean on his strength, knowing that this battle that requires something of me has been assigned to me to demonstrate his power to an onlooking world. Let me say that again. I can lean on his strength, knowing that this battle, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever battle it is that you feel like you're fighting, that this battle that requires something of me has been assigned to me in order that I might demonstrate his power to an onlooking world. Listen, we have a world that is looking at us right now for the hope that we have. Are we demonstrating that through the use of our assignment, through what God has called us to do? Are we proclaiming his goodness? Are we being ambassadors for Jesus Christ with our lives? It matters. It really matters. And so we have so much to learn from this amazing man named Jehoshaphat. I would encourage you to go deeper in your study. Who was he? What did he do? And what can we learn from his life that we can adopt in our own life? There is so much we have to learn from the greats in Scripture. Friend, I know that these are challenging things. I know that they are not easy. I know that you want to quit. I know that you want to give up the assignment. Listen, me too. There's never been a darker period in our world, in our country, in our nation. And there's never been a time that, man, I've wanted to quit so many times over the course of the last few years. But I keep remembering that God has given me this assignment to demonstrate his goodness and his power in the world. And if I don't do it, if I don't do what he's called Wendy to do, then it's not going to be done. And if you don't fulfill the calling on your life, whatever it is, even if that is loving on a neighbor who doesn't know Jesus, even if that is being kind at the person at the supermarket, even if that is letting that person go ahead of you in traffic, even if that means being nice and kind to people that are hateful towards you, whatever it is, I know that God has called you to those things because he's equipped you for them. And if he hasn't already presently equipped you for him, he will as you say yes to him. Will you stay the course? Will you say yes to the assignment? Will you do what God is calling you to do, only you to do? Friend, I pray that you would encourage someone with this video. Share it with someone. Like this video. Give it a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell to be notified every time that I upload content, and become a part of this journey that I am on by hitting that subscription box below. I am so grateful for your presence here, and as always, I am already looking forward to my next video. Be blessed today, friends. I am praying for you. This journey is always going to be difficult. It's always going to feel like it's an uphill climb, but I promise, if we get Jesus as the present of this, as the prize for all of our work, then we will have succeeded. I love you, friend, and I pray that you have an awesome day with Jesus. Bye-bye.